All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to My Other's Keeper. I am so excited today. And I say that every time, but that's because I have the most amazing friends. Ben Bacon Bits is on with me today. Bacon Bits is not his legal last name, but we call him that because we love him. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about his journey with mental health. We're going to cap off Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're going to talk about hope, the fact that um, depression isn't what kills you, it's the lack of hope that will ever get better, right? So, yeah, we're going to start there. Well, we're not going to start there, but we're going to end there today. So, Ben, why don't you introduce yourself and tell the fine people who you are?
Well, hello, fine people. First of all, I apologize for the echo. I didn't realize I had this window open. Okay, cleansing breath. Good afternoon. My name's Ben Turner, Ben Bacon Bits. Bacon is meat candy.
Yes.
I am a recovering codependent,
Mhm.
recovering depressive. Been working on recovery since 2003.
Oh, good. Okay.
Um, should I go on?
When you say a recovering codependent, what does that mean?
Okay. Yes.
Let's get into the meat and potatoes.
I wasn't sure if you had a list or not. Yeah, codependent is somebody who draws value from other people. Now, we all do this. Nobody wants to be hated. We all want approval of others. It comes from the need for tribe.
And
We
yeah, I was
all,
going to say, I think to a certain extent that's very healthy,
yes. Yeah.
wanting to derive affirmation from others. So are you being socially acceptable without
Yeah.
necessarily being a sheep, right?
Yes. Yeah, and to the point to where it is destructive, you derive so much value, too much value from another person to where you are willing to change anything about you, including your personal beliefs to
Yeah.
suit everybody. You become a people pleaser to the nth degree.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, and it tends to inhabit every area of your life. It will
Hmm.
not be limited to just those people who you think are in authority, but it
Hmm.
will tend to bleed into any relationship. A social chameleon would be an example of that. You tend to not I don't know if it's a term not exist, but where you stop and where the next person starts gets really fuzzy because you start
Yeah.
adopting their beliefs. You're no longer being true to yourself. You're deriving so much value from this other person that you're letting them unknowingly. I mean, it's nothing that they're doing necessarily to cause
Yeah.
this. It's just
It
your
might not be a them problem at all, right?
yes. Yeah, and that was the case of so many people in my life where I would start to mimic them, mimic what I thought that maybe not mimic. I would
Mm.
start to take on the things that I thought they wanted me to believe. And the
Hmm.
problem is, oftentimes when we think we know, a lot of times we don't. So
Yeah.
there'll be disagreements that come up, and then you'll get the person's disapproval. At which
Hmm.
point, you usually, if you're as bad as I was, now some codependent, there's degrees.
Yeah.
But when you're as bad as I was, uh, yeah, it won't end well. Um,
Yeah.
and it was definitely something I had to put a lot of work in, and work both in a therapy session and work by myself. And the latter part, I tried to shortcut. I'd been to a therapist; it's all cured. I don't need to
Yep.
worry about. I had the
Yep.
magic red pill, or is it blue pill? I don't remember. Red
It's a
pill.
pill.
Yeah, the pill. I was on the pill.
You were on the pill.
Yes.
All right.
Um, and yeah, I even after going through therapy, really good, expensive therapy, I still found in my case
Hmm.
that I was so needing to take on the beliefs, the persona. I needed the approval of others so much that it was destructive. I know destructive is an overused term, but it really, really
Well,
is
you
where,
lose all sense of self,
yeah, you basically have no
right?
identity at that point.
That's right. Yeah, you have no identity except for external validation, and
Yeah.
that's I find myself doing that
Mhm.
less than I used to, but I
Sure.
still find myself doing that. Um, yeah.
And I think everybody, I think we're all open to influence, especially from people
Mhm,
we perceive with authority.
mhm,
That, to some degree, that's just part of the human condition.
mhm.
But when you're dealing with somebody who's codependent to the degree I was, yeah, it can definitely put you in situations which are very unhealthy and
Oh,
don't
for
end well.
sure. No, things that end rarely do end well.
Sure.
That's why they end.
Mm. Yes.
So yeah. Okay. So yeah, I find that actually. Let me back up. In 2003, I started at a Bible school, a Mennonite Bible school. We were talking about what flavor of
Mhm.
Christianity, that kind of thing. I my tradition that I enjoy is Mennonite, and I learned about it there. One of the things that so many of these young women going to this school had been taught growing up is that their man has to be number one in their life,
Mm, mm, mhm,
right?
mm,
And they would come to me and they're like, "You've been married for how long?" And at the time, it was 8 years or something like that. And wow, yeah, 8 years. So long ago. Anyway, neither here nor there. Um, but yeah, it's like, okay, we've got kids. They're like, well, how do you, put your husband first and do all of these other things? Like, doesn't he have to have control? Like, no, 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 no. Nowhere in the Bible does it say you're a doormat. Nowhere. I am nobody's doormat.
mm,
But my husband is head of the household. He is the one who has the final authority, especially when it comes to
mm,
finances. I mean, there has to be, in any organization, there has to be a person with whom the buck stops, right?
mm,
Otherwise, at least with me, there would be too much fighting. But he will not do anything that doesn't take in my opinion, my thoughts, my needs, my desires. So growing up, I was a lot like them. I
mm.
thought that what I had to do was please my husband.
Oh, okay.
And
Sure.
over years, you were wondering where I was going with this, weren't you? Um, over years of uh, dating this guy, over years of self reflection and healing from my childhood abuses,
Mhm,
I learned that no, as a human being, my mind has worth, my opinion has worth, and it's
mm.
not just that of the other person.
Sure.
And actually, my husband is probably one of the biggest influences in teaching me that,
Mm,
because before that, I had no clue.
okay. Yeah, I've seen, I hesitate to mention, but I've seen some cults that
Mhm.
took, and you can tell a lot by a cult by how they treat their women, how they treat their children. I've seen
The
a
weakest of
lot.
them. Yep.
Yes, and I've seen a lot where they take, and I know what scriptures they would use.
Oh,
They
yeah.
take that, divorce other things, and
Mhm.
run with that and their interpretation of it, and then kind of amp it up a little bit. And
And
yeah,
that becomes the exclusive, everything has to do with this, right?
yes, and the say
So, yeah.
the expression you'll be hearing a lot is "wives submit," and every time they go, "Oh no, no, you can't wives submit," yeah,
Well,
so
if you actually take that entire passage in
yes,
context,
hmm,
the verse immediately, and I do mean immediately before
yeah,
that, says, "Husbands and wives submit to each other."
yeah. But
So,
with these movements, they kind of,
oh, they never go with that
yeah,
one.
just
Yeah.
forget that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of amazing the selective memory some groups have. there. But
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yes.
so your codependence
Okay.
came out as losing yourself in another relationship
Yes, my
or a group
codependent
of relationships?
my codependency would come out in anything, and mean
Oh.
any relationship. The closer, the better, but or the worse rather. And I know where and I know where this came from. It came from being picked out for abuse by a teacher, and
Mhm.
then also several instances throughout my life where I hate to use the term, but I will. Uh, being raised, no, I'll use this term, being raised by a mother who didn't have a lot or any, I guess would be the definition, empathy. And there were several instances where this came up, and it taught me that I was of no value, and therefore I must please other people to have value because I have no value. Well, I'm still look up in esteem to other people, therefore they have value. Therefore, I must
Right.
become like them. And
Yes. Yeah.
this was reinforced by one of the most by one of the most frequent sayings that I heard growing up. You need to be more like your brother. You need to be more like,
Mhm.
and
How
living
many
in
of
a
us have heard that, right?
yes, and living in a family where you have four siblings to deal with, it would always be the best of every. You need to be more. You need to be better in math, like your brother who's an engineer. You need to be better in track and field, like your brother who lettered in track or took state in
Yep.
track. You need to be,
Yep.
and it was that way with music and everything. And I found that that was probably the basis of my codependency and where I picked it up. It led me throughout life, and all the while, I was aware of the initial event that caused the biggest trauma, stressor
Mhm.
in my life. I was constantly aware of that, and I kept thinking, well, I know about it. I don't need therapy. I know about it. I know it happened. All they're going to do is tell me, get over it. So I thought. And
Yeah.
I went on throughout my life where I was usually a social outcast until high school. In high school, I learned to become known as a party animal. And that was because my immediate oldest brother went through high school. He had this persona or this, I don't know, reputation for being a
Mhm.
party animal. He was, he had a nickname. My nickname was real closely related to his, and I won't say them.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
I can't say it in mixed company. But uh, so I learned to play into that role,
Right.
and I had real friendships. I mean, this
Yeah.
is nothing where everything about you is phony, but
No.
you're
You live
you
down to the expectation.
yes, and all throughout high school, I was having that unknowingly having that belief reinforced because I found value in acting like the way people expected me to. I became liked. I,
Mm.
got a positive image. Everybody in high school loved me. Um,
Mhm.
I became popular. Granted, it's a small school. It's not hard to be popular in a school less than 400 kids. You know,
You'd be surprised how hard it can be for some people to be popular in a tiny school.
well, or maybe infamous would be a better term. Uh,
Yes, yes.
there were a few stories that
Yeah.
would go around about me, and I'm sure quite a few of my tales are lamented in high school lore. But um, I had that belief reinforced not negatively, but positive. I was seeing the benefits of
Mm.
acting like what I thought the way people, wanted me to act. Now, granted, I'm a high schooler. I'm going to be naturally drawn this way anyway. Even
Oh,
if I
yeah.
wasn't screwed up, I would have probably gravitated to these groups.
Yeah.
However, it became so much to where, let's see, going throughout college, I kind of got a little bit of a personal self identity, but I was still carrying this belief around with me. And when I got one of my jobs, I so looked up to my boss. I thought he was an ex-Marine. I was big into the forces at that time. Um, he just seemed so well put together. I was very
Mhm.
intimidated by him. Uh,
Mhm.
he at that time he kind of embodied everything I thought of, and you said the word authority.
Yeah.
And when uh, when an instance came up to where I was fired over it, and turns out they didn't even do, how do I put this without getting specific because it involves another person,
Mm.
but they didn't even do what they should have done by law. So
So due
uh,
diligence kind of thing?
yeah, they didn't do any diligence because I was,
Oh.
at this point, I found myself so wanting to take the blame for everything because somebody's projecting this on me. I must be at fault because I have no value. And
Mhm.
the only thing that I get value from is other people's expectations. Well, he's
Mhm.
expecting me to take the blame, therefore I must have done
So
it.
you will.
Well, I had people coming up to me who were in the room at the time and they said, "You did not do this." And but I was still so crushed by his not getting his approval
Mhm.
that I found, first of all, you can't, when you're in a position of high stress, you cannot use any critical thinking, none at
Right.
all. You cannot. You're in a place where fight or flight kicks in.
Mhm.
You're in a place where you're acting pretty much on emoji level, and I
Oh,
keep
yeah.
using that term, but that's pretty much what you're capable of. This makes me
Yeah.
sad. This makes
Yeah.
me angry. This makes me happy. That
The
kind of thing.
basic of
Yeah.
basic feelings.
I am threatened. Your speech will actually
Mhm.
become very, you'll lose command of words. You'll just start help, sad, trouble, that kind of thing. And I was
Mhm.
pretty near that point.
Mm.
And after I lost the approval of this boss, uh, I thought, well, um, that's there's nothing worth living for. So I went out to my car and I began to, I was eyeballing my 10 millimeter, in the getting ready to commit suicide. My
So you're not talking about a socket wrench?
No, a firearm, a pistol. Um,
Yes.
my I'm so thankful for this person because he has helped me grow so much. My immediate boss, who was in charge of, how do I say this? I worked for this one department. I used to work for this one department. It was very big. I got put in a smaller department. Well, there was a lot of animosity there and a
Mm.
lot of politics, and it was just really
Oh,
nasty.
yeah. Mhm.
The boss of the new department, he was such a good friend to me. He went out to the car and he knew I was out there and he stopped me. And after that, I went, of course, after having a meltdown, going to see my therapist, who I have seen, but it was for small things like
Mhm.
inter-office politics. She was used by the where I worked for to kind of solve typical office politics and
Right.
who's most in danger of quitting and blah blah blah. Um, I went to her. She sent me up to a treatment center, and that treatment center was up in Tucson. I won't
Mhm.
mention their name, but really good center. And I had a month, I kept thinking, oh, this is just going to be a vacation. Oh, this will be so great. Just have vacation.
Some
Oh,
time
it's going to
off.
be, yeah, and it's going to be wonderful. No, it was a lot of work. It was a
Yeah.
hell of a lot of work. I was amazed from the time you get up, the time you're going to bed, you're constantly in classes. When you're not in classes, you're doing P. I won't use the term PT. That sounds too militaristic, but you're doing physical exercise.
Physical activity. Yeah.
Yes. Um, in that center, we started going into the subject of codependency. And my therapists and my psychologists, they would talk to me about it a great deal, and none of it was sinking in. I mean, I'm like,
Mm.
I get it. And it's like a head and a heart thing. You don't
Right,
take it
right.
into your,
The 18 inches between the two, and
yes.
yeah.
And it is at that point that you take it in that becomes your character. It's kind of like you're grasping it. I grasp that. I get it.
Mhm.
Um, where you make it your own, that aha moment where everything clicks. I didn't really have that, but I mean, in my defense, they were throwing a lot at me. I
Yeah.
mean, so yeah, it's not that nothing of them, and I don't mean to say this. It's going to sound like a limiting belief coming out, but it was me. I just wasn't in that headspace. I wasn't
Yeah.
used to working in this. It's like, well, everybody does this. What do you mean? You're just
Yeah.
psychobabble at me. Dr. Phil, get out of here. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, um, this is a psychobabble. But in that program, they put me through EMDR, and at least in
What's
my
EMDR for people
oh,
who
I'm
don't know?
sorry, eye
That's okay.
movement eye movement desensitization reprocessing. Oh, eye movement
Desensitization.
desensitization reprocessing. Oh
There we
my
are.
gosh.
That's okay. That's okay. You've
Uh,
got to what does Greg call it? He calls it a
I had
language something. Anyway.
words
Yeah.
is hard, and I had vapor lock at the name.
Mm,
Usually it's people's names I forget, but
yeah.
yeah. So what that is it basically is a type of therapy where you will be given a bouncing ball to look at. You'll be given paddles possibly that have vibrations. You can even do it with sound, where you hear
Mm,
sound in each ear, and it's cyclical. And what it's
mhm.
designed to do is it's designed to get your brain, by doing this, you're engaging both sides of your brain. That's also a good, if you're in stress, it's also a good thing to help, at least a little bit to get your brain re-engaged.
Hmm.
They do this while asking you questions by qualified therapists, and they get you to reconstruct the event. You run through it, but then you apply reasoning, which is something as a 5, 6-year-old child
Yeah,
you can't do. That's even then you couldn't do it, and because it's in your emotional center, there's no chance of you doing it.
for
So what it
sure.
so what it enables you to do is enables you to us to apply critical thinking, and then the person doing it will often guide you and say, okay, now that you've done this, is there any part of this that's your fault? Well, no. You know, is there something you did that you deserve this? No.
Mhm.
And you're able to apply reasoning. And I swear it was like that was my aha moment. That was like something clicking on. It's like I
Hmm.
this memory, I mean, it still affected me a little bit, but it no longer rules my life. It's like I had just been able to give.
Mhm.
It's like it was almost erased at that point. And I do know that EMDR is a type of therapy where in some states you do not want to go through it if it's something you can testify to. In my case, the person who long dead, so there was no
Yeah.
chance of that. But because it can reconstruct memories, and it turns out actually memories aren't that
Not that
solid to
difficult to
begin with.
reconstruct. Yeah.
Yes, every
Yeah.
time you remember something, you're actually in right mode. You can you can you can accidentally write something to your memory, and it's something innocent, but the next time you remember it, that'll be a solid fact. And yes, it goes on and on.
Mhm.
Um, so after that, I felt free from that event and thought, okay, I'm cured, doc. I don't need any more. Your 90 meeting, I think it was 90 meetings in 90 days. And I tried to remember how many I stuck to. It was a little impossible. I did do some. We
Right?
didn't have that many meetings in the small town I was in, so
Mhm.
yeah. But I thought, okay, I'm cured, doc. This is it. Like, oh yes, it's all over. Well, I kept having events come up where I was reminded of this a police officer. When I was a young child, I got hit by a car once. I was on the road.
Right.
Wasn't I was just riding along the road. This car hit me, and when the police car pulled up, the first thing I said was, "It was my fault." And the police officer who I actually knew after Cottonwood, or after I went through this center, he talked to me about that. He said, "I noticed that because I was talking to him about the event that led to, that
Mhm.
that started this. He says, "I noticed you tend to think everything's your fault." Because that's the same word you said when you're a child. Like, okay,
Mhm.
whatever, you're psychobabbling me. Okay, well, then I had an instance in church that we had talked about where, and this had come up several times. Every time somebody would say, "Oh, there's trouble," I think, I must have done it. Whatever it is, I must have done. And it does not matter the fact that most oftentimes, it turned out to be something else. No, it was still somehow my fault. Well, this happened once at church where pastor's wife said somebody pinched my butt. I must have done it. It must have been an accident. And I went up to her and I started to apologize. And she said, "What? What are you apologizing for?" Because I had in my head where it's an image of a lot of people around somebody, "Oh, somebody pinched my rear." And, I must have done it. I don't know how, but, who knows? I don't remember everything I did. And she said,
You
"No,
might remember that one though.
you would think, but,
You would think.
but you would
I
think, but
I might yeah.
when you're so crucially codependent upon others, yeah,
Oh, for sure. Oh my
facts don't matter.
goodness.
Come on, my mind's made up.
Yep.
But luckily in my case, and this really started to help me, was she said, "What are you babbling about? We know who did this. Why? What is this about?" And that was when I started to notice, like, holy crap. Okay. So now I got to find out what codependency is. And it
Mhm.
was at that point I began to figure out, okay, this is what, because I still didn't know what codependency was. In my mind,
Right.
it was something where it was a psychobabble term that Dr. Phil made up when he was visited by the aliens or something. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up.
Yeah.
But it was at that point that I realized that, okay, I have to do work on this. And over the past, oh my gosh, 20, 21 years,
Mhm.
I have been chipping away at that, and chipping away at the limiting belief, which I'd repeated to myself. And this is something, and of course, I'm not getting into this now, but it is something called autosuggestion, where you repeat something to you. It is a form of hypnosis. And you
Mhm.
may think, and oh, I'm not being hypnotized. There's no moving watch. That's not what hypnosis necessarily is. It's just one particular type. Repeating a message to yourself enough, you will believe it,
Yeah.
and it works quicker
Absolutely.
than a lot of people think.
Yeah.
Um, this happens quite a bit, and so in going through, and of course, when I discovered this, like, well, I'm screwed up. I'm just never getting
Mhm.
better. I'm just going to have to, I mean, my life's better now, but something's eventually going to happen. Somebody's going to commit a murder.
Mhm.
And although I didn't believe in false confession, I'll confess to it. I'm going to go away from prison. Um,
Wow.
something, I always pick that
Right.
example because it's the most dramatic. But
Yeah.
it wasn't until I started working on it that I began to see that, there actually is help for this. It is mental health. It is
Mhm,
a question of mental health. Even though we do it to ourselves, it is mental health. I mean,
mhm,
well, we may not cause the initial event, but repeating it over and over and over, it still affects our mental health. And
mhm.
in doing the work, that is where I started to actually see that there is hope, that this thing that I've carried with me all my life, this thing that I thought defined who I was,
Mhm.
to every part of my being, having no value whatsoever, being nothing but a piece of everything being my fault. I break everything. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'll never be as good as. You can go down the list, and chances are, if it was negative, I probably said it. But I began to see, oh, wow, I can see how you beat this now.
You can see
And
holes in that logic.
you can't. And there's multiple ways that you can do it. A good
Mhm,
therapist can really be a godsend in
mhm.
this. And it was, but I still, even after I knew what a therapist was, after I started seeing my therapist who did nothing but talk about some job plays before, she started helping me figure some of this out.
Mhm.
And we had a men's group that actually helped. We'd all just sit around and talk about my wife left me, or my, in the case of one of us, my girlfriend got caught with an AK-47 running down the street.
Oh,
Do you
boy.
think I'm going to lose my security clearance? Yeah,
Maybe?
I think that's a goner.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so.
yeah,
Oh, wowzers.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but even in that group, I could start to see real people having real issues, and I could start to see where they, for the first time in my life, I could start to define where somebody ended and where I started. And
Mm,
that was always an issue with me. I could never define the boundary of where somebody stopped and I started. If
right.
I knew that if you didn't like lilac? Yeah, if you didn't like lilac, oh my gosh, this would
Lilac.
have come off so fast. Um, if
Purple
you
happens to be my favorite color, so you're doing great.
if you didn't like birds,
Psychically somewhere.
that bird would be outside, or else he
Mhm,
might be in the
right.
hereafter. But um, it was in that I started to see that there is hope beyond. This is something that was so insidious in my life
Mhm.
that it literally took me multiple times, took me to a place where I need to end this. This is, even though I believed it all, I did not know any better. I thought this
Mhm.
is just the way life was. I knew there was still something wrong because,
You thought that this is how everybody lived their lives.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that is the belief I had, was just that it's a given truth,
Yeah.
and or that other people were so much better that
Mm.
they, the I keep bringing up Facebook as a thing of what not to do, but Facebook, and we do
Yeah.
this. I did this to the nth, where I would meet somebody, their faults would come out. I wouldn't see them like, no,
Mhm,
they are as a gift, as from heaven.
mhm,
Um, there is no fault with them.
mhm.
And you start to compare yourself to that illusion of a person.
Yes. Yep.
You will always lose. You won't lose
Yep.
sometimes. You will always lose. And you will repeat to yourself, I can't do this. I'm no good. Don't measure up, blah, blah, blah. Um, that it wasn't until I started really doing work on the limiting beliefs, because I had the initial trauma
Mhm.
pretty much gone from my life. I still had all the trauma throughout my life, repeated over and over. And the most important thing, I had those automatic negative thoughts
Mhm.
going through my head for 30, I don't remember, 30,
Oh, yeah.
30 plus years,
Yeah.
probably 8 to 20 times a day, every day,
Oh, yeah.
365.
Oh,
That's a
yeah.
lot of programming.
It
Yeah.
is.
a Russian agent would love to program somebody that good because they could turn anybody to do anything with that much program.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
Wasn't it Hitler who said, "You give me a child for 6 years and I'll program them for life"?
yep. At
Yep,
least the best. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was him.
yeah.
What a guy!
Now, wise and great man, as some people might say.
But he made the trains run on time.
He did, and he made sure everybody had work.
Yeah,
Mm,
no, yeah.
okay, never mind, apart from that.
But that's an example how a codependent
But
would
yes,
operate. So in that
exactly,
situation,
yeah, yeah,
it sounds like a character, and okay, it kind of is to a point. But when you're codependent to that at that degree, you could literally be given a Hitler, and you'd be, oh
mhm,
well, we just got to find his good side. Oh, but
yeah.
he has his good qualities. I mean, yeah, okay, a few million dead. I mean, come on, you can't,
Not like those
okay,
people had any worth anyways, I
yeah,
mean, like,
and
really.
that is the scary part because that was the sorry, I had to grab my pen.
Yep,
That is the scary part because literally,
that was the ethos at the time.
yeah, and you're opening yourself up to that.
Mhm,
And now I'm not saying that everybody's codependent to that degree. I'm saying
no,
I was codependent to that degree.
right.
When you place that much value on the opinion of somebody else, that is the
Mhm,
quickest way to lose hope because you will never measure up.
that's right.
Everybody's human. We will all disappoint each other at
Mhm,
some point. And yeah, and it wasn't until a few years ago of really starting to hammer my limiting beliefs that I started to see, wow, there's actually hope at the end of this. And
mhm,
we don't have to live with whatever's destroying us.
right. You keep talking about limiting beliefs. Expand. What exactly would be a limiting belief? What are, say, 2 or 3 examples of what that might look like?
It'd be one of the things I bring up. And Tommy calls them automatic negative thoughts.
Mhm,
Automatic negative thought may also apply more to you need a drink. You have to drink now. You have to do this.
mhm,
But essentially, they're the same thing. I'm not good enough is a good limiting belief. It limits you and who you are.
mhm,
These usually come to us as children. We use that usually when we adopt these. They
mhm,
serve to protect us as we're children,
mhm.
but as we're adults, they're no longer needed and they
Yeah,
serve to actually destroy us, really.
that's right.
I hate to put it that way, but
You're not
uh,
wrong.
yeah, I'm not good.
Yeah,
I'm not
I'm
good
not
enough.
enough.
I'm not good looking enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not short enough.
I'm not smart
I'm
enough.
not
I'm
blonde
not.
enough. I'm not smart enough. You can name anything, any negative. I mean, there's some as small as my toes are ugly. You know, you could go down to
I
that
saw a
level.
movie where that was this one lady's thing. So, yeah. She was a
That's
supermodel, but her toe was up awful. So, yeah, she was therefore ugly.
I just remember an earlier conversation with Chris where Christy was talking about men don't care if your toenails match your fingernails. They really don't, but we think they do. So yeah, that was on my
Yeah.
mind. But a lot of people don't like to feel that way. I mean, they may think it's natural, but they don't like to. So a
Mhm,
lot of codependents will become, used to substances to self-medicate.
mhm,
Um, in my case, it causes depression and
mhm,
self-destruction.
mhm,
I did a few risky behaviors, nothing
mhm.
quite so. I didn't go skydiving without a parachute or anything, but there's
Good.
times I
You
was.
did that once anyway, so,
Yeah, yeah, and it's like yeah, kamikaze practice. All the good ones never make it out of
I know, right?
yeah, they
Yeah.
but yeah, there was times I would because of my religious beliefs, I still thought that it's a common belief that suicides go to hell.
Mhm.
So I would try to set up events in motion, and you know, never really went through with it, but
Right.
you still put yourself in a position where accidents could happen,
Yeah.
knowingly and even unknowingly. So,
Yeah.
because yeah, if you don't have any identity, you don't have anything. You look at Maslow's pyramid, you have the bottom rung is, your immediate psychological needs. I need shelter, I need food, I need, but
Right.
the next layer up, you need to belong to a group, and then getting
Hmm.
esteem with.
Hmm.
That's one of the ways that they program prisoners is they will hold they will try to strip away everything of their identity. They'll strip away their rank. You no longer get your uniform, and they'll start
Don't have a
holding up.
name anymore.
Yeah, you don't have a name, you have a number, and
Yep.
one of the things they'll start to do is they'll try to find what piece of identity you still have and start to threaten that to get you to
Hmm.
talk. And the way
Hmm.
I've heard described is kind of like holding up your identity on a card and just starting to rip it.
Yeah.
It's not a way to live. It
No.
And I know it's a lot more common than people realize. It leads to a lot of problems. It can be the starting place of a lot of problems. For a long time, I kept thinking, well, you know, codependency, who cares? Even at, but it
Yeah.
can't, anything, I guess all things should be in moderation, including moderation. So that's a self
Yeah. That
statement.
makes sense.
But anything to that extreme, depression to that extreme, of course, would be instantly
Oh, for sure.
destructive. But to not have an identity, what else is there? Um,
Yeah.
if you don't have that, you don't have anything. You don't have
Right.
yourself. You, if you put that much approval on people, have faults.
Hmm.
How can you be expected to please a higher power? Because you will, you know, if you're not willing to see the faults of somebody who's flesh and blood right in front of you, you are not going to be discerning enough to dig through and find
Right.
places where it says, I am love, I am this. No, you're going to be looking
Mhm.
at, oh my gosh, these people bought it, and Sodom and Gomorrah, they bought it.
Yeah.
You're just going to be looking at that and saying, well, I can't measure up to that.
No,
So,
that's right.
it's a hopeless existence. It really is.
For
And
sure.
so,
So
yeah, I
where
guess
was it that you went to therapy that really helped? Where did you find hope in all of this?
I found a little bit of hope. Actually, I found a lot of hope after the therapy. It's just I found I was carrying around behaviors I didn't know I still needed to work on. I thought I
Mm.
had the magic bullet. It's all
Mhm.
cured. Come on, doc.
Yep.
Who needs to work on it? Only the weak need to work. Come on. I admitted it. It's all over. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
That should be done now. But it wasn't in basically until I started working for a place. Well, I started going through therapy first, and that's when I started to figure out, okay, this is what limiting beliefs are. And my therapist worked with me and started saying, okay, you need firm boundaries first of all. Then you need to. That's one of the other things with being codependent. You tend not to have real firm boundaries. You tend to be ideal
Mhm.
cult members. You
Mhm.
tend to be easily manipulated by people with nefarious purposes. I'm trying not to say
Yeah.
that term. Um,
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying.
but yeah, you'll find yourself an ideal cult member, and they can pick up on that.
Oh, yeah.
They can people with nefarious purposes. They can spot people with low confidence, and when you have no identity, you're not going to have any confidence. You can think, oh, okay, I can fake my way through. No, you can fake your way through it for a little while, but
Yeah, give it 10 minutes.
yeah, you'll
Yeah.
eventually be in collapse.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, um,
Yeah.
hate to be so melodramatic, but yeah, it wasn't um, until that event at church that I really started having genuine hope. Before I thought, okay, this is magical cure. It was that event at church where I was able to actually, okay, I need help with this. Doc, why am I doing this? Well, so you're doing this because you're trying to people please. Why am I trying to
Mhm.
people please? You're trying to people please because you have no value in your eyes. Why do I have no value in my eyes? Because you've been telling yourself you're nothing but a piece of crap for 30 years. Even somebody who's done things that are wrong still
Mhm.
need to get uh, you need to get that out of your head because no
Mhm.
good can come of it.
Right.
You have value. You're worth a good relationship. You're worth
Mhm.
having,
Trust. You're worth um,
all that. Yeah.
all of these things. Yeah,
Um, sorry, my
that's okay.
throat was getting
I've
full.
been drinking through the whole. I'm a big drinker. What can I say?
I, I,
I'm not addicted to Starbucks. I'm addicted to their cups.
I
So
like to say I
yeah.
have a drinking problem. I've had mandibular advancement. It's killed the nerves in my lower mouth. So
Oh
as a
no.
result, I mean, that's fine. It's nothing
Just
big, but
dribble, dribble,
as a
dribble.
result, I tend to dribble a lot, since
Yeah.
hence I have a drinking problem. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, and it wasn't until that event after church I really started seeking help. Started
Mhm.
working on limiting beliefs at least a little bit, but it wasn't
Mhm.
until I started working for Chase Hughes.
Mhm.
Actually, slightly before that, that I found him on the behavior panel,
Mhm.
and I found that he had a confidence reboot program. At least it's
Mhm.
called confidence reboot, wherein um, he uses quite a few different methods, but that is where I started getting self confidence, and that is when I really started beating down my limiting beliefs. And
Mhm.
there's something at which will unfortunately, take we never really truly kill them off, but we can diminish them pretty
Right.
quickly.
Yeah.
So,
At the beginning of my run here on Facebook, I was really taking what Tommy from the lifeboat was saying very much to heart, talking about the automatic negative thoughts, the ants. So I got on with a few people. It's like, okay, ants, what are they to you? How do you defeat them? And my sister and I, we came up with pets,
mm,
positive, encouraging
mm,
thoughts, right? So
mhm.
a pet will get rid of an ant any day of the week. So
Yeah, and that's one of the methods that you can choose to uh, get rid of them. Is you can choose to reframe them.
right.
You can choose to mock them, which is what I did. I learned to
Hmm.
print them out as if they're being celebrated, and then view them with
Mm,
abject disdain.
Stain.
Because you see when you see it and you see it being celebrated, you tend to pick up on just how asinine they are, and they
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
It's just we tend to hold on to them because they're inside of us.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes it just takes having them external to be able to see them, and to be able to process really what this means. What am I telling myself? What
Mhm.
Where does this lead? Once you see it printed out in front of you, staring at you in the face, especially if it's like being celebrated, that
You
will
see,
cause you to really
ludicrous is
look.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And part of the model of influence, there's several different methods and models that people use,
Mhm.
but one of the ones I'm big on is the fate model: focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. These are ways of which our we can talk to the lower part of our brain, which does not speak, as I was saying earlier, it doesn't speak English, it only speaks in emojis. It's people will use the term animal brain, lizard brain. Well, there's all sorts of names for it. The lower brain
Yeah.
stem. It um
The bird brain.
it yeah, that's the literal bird brain.
That's
Over to
right.
my right, we constantly think that, oh well, we have our higher reasoning centers, we can overrule
Yeah.
that part of your brain actually controls things. It controls a lot of things, but you can't directly, by brute
No.
force, overrule it. If you think you can, try holding your breath until you die. Even if
See?
your chances are you won't even pass out, but even if you do, it's the part of your brain that tells your body to breathe.
Breathe.
It's
Yeah.
also the part of your body that takes your limiting beliefs. If you've been repeating them enough, saying, this is true, you know, this is good because you've been telling yourself it so much.
Mhm.
There you are. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. The method I was using was emotions, using that emotion, that disgust, to talk to that part of your brain. And yeah, that can work. You can also choose to reframe it.
Mhm.
Um, there was one that came up earlier in needing a meeting today, and I can't remember what it was. Focus, authority, tribe. No, Christy had some other way that she was dealing with it, and I can't recall what it was. But yeah, so uh, that is how I started dealing with them, and now I choose. Now I try to mock them and reframe. Kind of replace it with a positive belief. That is something that's also used in hypnosis. Is
Mhm.
first of all deprogramming yourself,
Mhm.
dehypnotizing yourself, and then replacing it. So, it's kind of a two-pronged attack, but yeah, it's something we all need to work on. Um,
Mhm.
and the mere fact that somebody who's been doing this for 20 plus years still has to do it, that kind of tells me it's just kind of a lifelong
Mhm.
thing that we all have to do. You can do the same thing just simply putting in your mirror, I have value. Someplace
Mhm.
where you can see it every day and not just look at it, but tell it to yourself. Repeat
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
One of the examples I saw is I'm getting better every day and in every way. Telling yourself that several times. You if you you can do this, repeating that to yourself multiple times, then shutting your eyes, taking a deep breath, and repeating it once more. More often than not, you'll start to feel an emotion, and that is usually excitement because you're starting to tell yourself something new,
Mm.
something good. Focus. You're teaching yourself
Mhm.
something new, and that is what Tommy was. That was the other example
Right.
I was thinking of. Tommy was talking about how he reinvented himself. That the old Tommy
Mhm.
was not.
Yeah. That old person did that.
Yeah.
Tommy hasn't done that.
Yes.
Tommy hasn't broken any laws like that. Tommy
Yeah.
hasn't, so on
And
and so
so,
forth.
yeah, he started acting like he was this new person. What that does is
Mhm.
that creates focus, which is another, the focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. I'm using emotion, he's using focus, and both of which can be, you can use both of them. That's the reason why Tommy's really big on, you quit something, you change something in your house, you make your bed, you paint something a different color, just to create focus, to tell your mind this is new. And that will trigger in your brain. It's like, okay, something's different.
Mhm.
Okay, I no longer do this. It helps you to sink it into your inner core of what's going on.
Mhm. Okay. Um, yeah. So the focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. Okay. So for me, um, and I hate to sound all oofy floofy, I tend to rely heavily on my faith.
Mhm.
Um, like you said, you take your old and you reframe it as this is new. There's a verse in the Bible that says, um, anyone who's in Christ is a new creation. The old
Mm.
has passed away, all things have become new. And that's how I look at my life. I
Mhm.
am not this person who I was. I am this person now. I was given worth by, you know, I was given worth, and then these people have reinforced that worth,
Mhm.
and that sort of thing has really helped. What do you suggest for people who are in toxic relationships that they don't realize that they can get out of?
Probably the first step I would say is try to find a therapist.
Hmm.
Because you can explain to them situations or things in your that are going on that I may not necessarily be aware of.
Hmm.
Also, they will, there may be things that that ways in which they can help you, which are specific to your situation. Uh,
Hmm.
in my case, um, how to get out of toxic relationships. Uh, First of all, realize that you actually have value, and then that's going to be a big step to somebody who's addicted to being in a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
But assuming that you want to get out, that would be the very first step. Is
I'm gonna push back a little bit. I think recognizing that you're in a
yeah,
toxic relationship, that's huge because a
yeah,
lot of people are like, "That's not toxic, that's just love. That's
yeah.
how I show love to this person." I know a woman, she was a widow, and she felt that she was being selfish because she didn't have anybody else to get up for. She wasn't getting up at whatever time of day. She was doing it whenever she wanted. She
Mm,
wasn't cooking for other people. She was eating just whatever she wanted, and she thought that was selfish. And I'm like, no, that's called being self-sufficient. Um, but for her, that was that I think would be a whole pile of codependence right there,
mhm.
wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When you're
So
being yeah,
realizing that it's a toxic trait versus simply a loving trait or
sure.
whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing is being codependent, you will tend to attract
Mhm.
not always. Of course, not
No.
always. You know, a codependent person can attract a very healthy person very easily, but you kind of make yourself a prime target, and you don't even
Mhm.
realize you're doing it. Nobody does this stuff intentionally. You
Right.
don't go out and say, "Hey, I'm going to get a good narcissist, and I'm going to fall in love with him." And yeah, that's going to be great. I actually used the term. I tried not to, but I said it. It is overused.
It is, but it's also true, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, just yeah. First of all, if you don't recognize there's a problem, then you're just going to be stuck there.
Yeah.
But realizing that there's a problem, realizing you're worth a
Mhm.
healthy relationship, you you have value.
Mhm.
It's your value is not defined by anybody else. Your value, you have value as a human being, and
Intrinsic value rather than
yeah,
given value.
transferred, yeah, or
Yeah.
transactional, or yeah, whatever term you want to
Yes.
use.
Transactional is the word I was looking for, yeah.
Yeah, I've had transactional thrown at me so much, and I keep thinking transactional analysis with "I'm okay, you're okay," but I won't go into that '70s book.
Welcome to 1970s. Exactly.
Somebody
CUC
else,
74 wants their book back.
somebody else finally got the reference. I don't
I
believe
got
it.
it, I got it. We must be similar ages because we're getting the same type of stuff.
Oh my gosh, I didn't. Yeah, I kept thinking I was always talking to myself about that with that
No,
reference.
no, no, I get it.
Yeah, realizing you have value is probably a
Right.
big thing, and then of course talking to somebody you can trust. There has to
That's
be
huge.
somebody there, and even if it's a it's a therapist, fine. Find somebody you can trust,
Mhm.
and because they will, and that you can talk to about the specifics of your situation,
Oh, yeah.
and yeah, get their help. But yeah, realize that you're worth something. You're worth a healthy relate. You have value enough to have a healthy relationship.
Right.
You have value as a human. You know, the founders of the country understood that we all had inalienable
Mhm.
rights. You know that nobody else gets to define who you are. You get to define who you are, and um, you don't belong to anybody else. You're not property,
Right.
and that, I guess, ultimately, when you get down to codependency to the nth degree, that is the basis of it. You no longer have value. You're
Mhm.
property. You're because you must belong to this other person. Not talking about a romantic relationship or anything, but
But
you
you have
must
no
be,
identity
yeah,
outside of whatever
yeah,
this is.
whoever the
Yeah.
person de jour is, and it can change in every conversation.
Or
You
even not necessarily a person, but a position. I am a
yeah,
teacher, that's my identity, therefore that's who I am. Once I no longer have that identity, who am I?
yes, you no
I
longer
went through
can.
that. Yeah, I went through that when I had to retire being a teacher. It's like, okay, now who am I outside of that?
Mm,
You
yeah,
know,
that's
what does being Kim really mean?
yeah.
So for me, hope came from, like you said, self-sufficiency, self-identification, being able to say, okay, this is what I like. This, I don't like my eggs fried. I like them poached. I don't like my eggs, or I don't like my whatever, whatever, right? It's what do I like versus what I'm supposed to like. The
Mm,
shoulds. Quit shoulding yourself.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
I am Sam. I am. I do not like green eggs and ham.
that's right.
So I couldn't help
But
it.
what if you do? And if you
Yeah,
do like green eggs and ham, that's fine too.
yeah. I often wondered about the green eggs. What was that about? But who knows?
Quails have green eggs.
No kidding. I
Yeah,
did not realize that.
yeah.
Wow. Learn something new every day. Every time you learn
Different types
something new,
of
something old
chickens have
goes.
different colors of eggs as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What can I?
Yeah, I have
I
that.
live in a very rural area.
Yeah, yeah. I have 5 chickens. They're interesting beasts.
They are.
Yeah,
They are.
they're very judgy. They are very judgy. They don't say it, but yeah,
They're
they're
looking
judgy.
at you. They do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
They're sizing
Mhm.
you up.
Pretty
Like, okay.
much. Especially the roosters.
Yeah, I had to peck my way out of this fence. I'm gonna peck my
Yeah,
way through that brick wall, and then
pretty
you'll
much. Then you're gonna. I think we have totally derailed the conversation, my friend. But that's not a bad thing either. I like derailing. So if you're given, if you're to give somebody one piece of advice when it comes to having hope, having a look forward to the future, what would that be?
piece of advice or hope looking to the future.
Hmm.
Somebody, I would say, just simply knowing there are ways to. You're not alone.
Hmm.
There are people willing to help. There's whatever you've been through. Chances are, even there's somebody in the boat has been through the same thing. You can find peer support.
Hmm.
You do have value. You are worth something, and
Hmm.
there is help for whatever it may be. If it's codependency, I kept thinking, well, this is something alien. This doesn't exist. Or then I jump to the other extreme. Everybody has this.
Right.
No, you don't. You exist as a separate person. You do take. You yeah. I would just say that you have value, and there is help out there for whatever you may have.
Yeah. And the boat that Ben is talking about is a YouTube channel called The Lifeboat. And that's where he and I first met. And then there's a whole pile of other groups of us ripples from that lifeboat who get together. And Ben's right. There will be people, whether
Mm.
it's here on this channel, whether it's from the lifeboat, whether it's from needing a meeting, whether it's from Blessed to Crochet, all of these different places,
I'm sorry.
people will find.
I keep thinking the boat is ubiquitous. That's all everywhere. And I
Well,
fall into thinking,
but I agree with you. Most of the people you and I hang out with, the boat is ubiquitous. But a lot of people who will be watching my channel
yeah,
don't necessarily know the boat. Uh, but yeah, we're not all in the same boat. We're in the same storm, kind of thing. So yeah, it's just a matter of finding the right life raft. So yes, no, I agree with Ben. I think having individual self actualization. Um, what would be your top three ways to gain confidence in yourself? For example, I had a student who came up to me and she's like, "Oh, teacher, I want to be confident like you." I'm like, "Okay, so you need to practice your English. You need." She says, "No, no, 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 teacher. I want to be confident." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" Well, I want to be like you. I want to be able to stand and speak. And she came from a house and a culture where she had zero value. Even her little boys treated her like chattel because that's how they saw her treated by their dad.
Mhm.
So in her situation, that needs a lot of therapy right
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
But what can a person do on their own that is outside of having to go for therapy that they can do to even get themselves to the place where they think they can take the therapy? What would you suggest?
Things that people can do. Hey, the bird distracted me. I don't know why he's making that noise.
It's because you're on with me. That's all of it right there.
Things
It's
that
all
people
about me.
can do. Things that let me see if I can get the question right. Um,
All right, Tweety.
things that people can do by themselves to get them to the
Mhm.
point to where they go to therapy, or
Well, to increase their own confidence.
I
There's
found.
something that I had heard of years ago, and apparently it is scientifically studied and whatever, is doing the Superman pose.
Oh yes,
Chest out, yes, and you hold it for like 5 minutes,
yeah.
and it's like it
That,
may sound weird, but it works.
yes,
So what is
Cuddy, Dr. Cuddy did a
okay?
TED talk on that, and that is one where if you need to go in for a job, if you need
Job
to go in for a
interview.
job interview or anything that's stressful, what you can do is stand the Wonder Woman pose, Superman
Yep.
pose. If you do that for 5 minutes, it will tend to last for about 10 minutes. You can
hmm
also, if you're driving to a job interview, you sit shoulders back. When you go into the office, you sit taking up as much room as possible. If you do this, your body, our brains work to where our brain tells our body stuff, and our body will actually tell our brains things. So if you try to just take up more space, just spread out. You don't need, it's not anything you necessarily need to do in public. You can do it in your car. Just sit there, just try to take up as much space as possible. That will help. Um, Practicing, people hate this, practicing public speaking. You know,
hmm
uh, Going to an AA meeting was a great place to do that. I went to an
hmm
AA meeting as a codependent. A lot of
Mm.
them didn't get it.
No.
No harm, no foul. That's going to be the worst case. You don't have to see those people ever again.
Right.
But just simply going in and saying, "Hi, I'm Ben. I'm a codependent." Just simply standing up and doing that. You do it enough, it will truly help. You'll start to see that the world's not going to end. You're not going to
hmm
get cancer from public speaking. At least maybe
hmm
if you smoke like L. Ron Hubbard did. Okay, then maybe that's different. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's not going to kill you. Your heart will race when you do it at first.
hmm
You'll live through it, and you start to realize that feeling is not you dying. That
Right.
we are faced with, and that's the way a lot of trauma is too. A lot of trauma will give you that, oh my gosh, your heart pounding, your
hmm
stomach tastes like tin,
hmm
your head starts to swim. If you
hmm
just deep breathe, you can do the eye movement back and forth a few times. That gets your brain re-engaged. Just handle it once, do that, and you see that it's not the end of the world. It's
hmm
like, yes, I can stand up, I can talk to people. Then you can reference that later. Like, okay, last time I talked to 10 people, you know what? Okay, I didn't die.
hmm
It's not the end of the world.
hmm
If you just that simple act will help quite a bit. Um,
Right.
let's see here. I found, and everything else I found was pretty much in hypnosis, learning that we rise by lifting others. That
hmm
was pretty big. Learning that everybody's wearing a mask. Wait a
hmm
minute. I'm the only one wearing a mask. Everybody wears a mask, but everybody pretends that they're not wearing a mask.
Yeah.
That's kind of that kind of helped. I don't know why that helped me with self-confidence, but it did. Just those two beliefs of just having that stated twice, those two stated to me, it let me know that, you know what, nobody else is we all have our demons.
Yes.
We all fail to measure up.
Right.
And we all pretend that we all pretend that we're not, we don't have this facade we operate under.
Right.
That I found that to be a big help to me. Maybe others may not be, but yeah, that helped
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's great. I think that's a really good it's a really good place to be able to say that I really like the mask one. Everybody's wearing a mask.
Mm,
People wear a mask. It's like those white lies that we have to say because it's socially acceptable, right?
mm,
Just one of those things that everybody does it, but doesn't make it right. I don't know, but it makes it palatable, you
yeah,
know. So,
and it's if if you're in a meeting and need confidence, try moving slow.
hmm
Try breathing. Try to move like you're moving in water. That will
hmm
that will help you to feel more confident, and it's not going to be a magic light switch, but it'll calm your brain down, and
right,
it's kind of like a loop that needs to work itself through once. But
yeah,
yeah, there's all sorts of have hacks that you can do, little things. But yeah, having a therapist is huge. So once you get to the point, yeah, try to get yourself a therapist. There's all sorts of different therapy that can help. In my case, hypnosis was a big one, and
hmm
and that's something that a lot of people may cringe from. But
hmm
hypnosis and subliminal programming are two different things. One doesn't have
yes,
to be the other. But
no,
yeah, the hypnosis I'm thinking of, you can sit and you can listen to the entire thing, and you will hear every word. It's like, okay, I'm not being fed that.
no.
I'm not being told that. Trying to remember what the old Led Zeppelin backward masking thing said. But yeah, nothing weird like that. So
Yeah,
guide meditation can also help.
yeah.
Uh,
Guided visualization and guided meditation and that kind of thing.
sure.
Yeah, you don't have to have your eyes closed
Yeah,
and letting in the spirits kind of thing.
yeah,
That's not necessarily, it can be for some people, but it doesn't have to be, right? So,
yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming on today, my friend.
Thank you, and
I'm
thank you for dealing with.
it kept it light.
Yeah, I just of all the things I took into account, I never took into account the bird. And
Don't worry about it.
Carol loves to talk to the bird and get it going whenever
Oh,
she
there you
can.
go.
So, yeah.
No, but what's going to happen is sometime in the future, I'm going to have Ben back a couple of times. He and I have some very similar interests, like anything to do with psychology. Yeah. But also body language and behavior. He talked about working with Chase Hughes, and I'm like, you worked with Chase Hughes. You know? he is he is incredible,
Mm,
Mr. Hughes and
yeah,
his group of friends
yeah.
that
He's
Ben was talking about on the behavior panel.
yeah.
They were they're a very interesting group of people, but that group of people really shows a lot of people are the same everywhere, but people are different everywhere. And
Mm,
that's one of
mhm.
the things I grew up learning because I moved around so much. So we're going to be talking about behavior. We're going to be talking about mental health. We'll talk about a number of different things. So Ben will be back again and again, and if he'll have me. Uh, so thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate having you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I will see you on Tuesday next week. We're going to have my friend Gwen on, and she's going to be talking about how um, constant pain, chronic pain, that's the word I'm looking for, chronic pain, how it really changes the way your mind works, the way it changes the rest of your body systems, and all of that. She's been living with chronic pain for more years than I care to admit. But yeah, she'll be on June
Mm.
4th. So I will see you then. Have a great day. Bye.